I misplaced the garbage can once, and the next day there was a police car at my door. Yes, she called the police because a bag of garbage was in the wrong place. Only things turned against her in an unexpected way. If there was one thing I didn't expect when I moved to an organized neighborhood, it was that the war would start over a garbage bag. That's right, a garbage bag. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't vandalism. It was trash. The neighborhood had an HOA, that famous association that was supposed to exist to keep things running smoothly, but which, in practice, only served to empower people who had nothing else to do with their lives. And at the top of this empire of useless regulations was her, the president of the HOA, the supreme guardian of the order of the dump. It all started on a quiet morning. I put out my trash like any civilized human being, but apparently I committed a heinous crime without realizing it. Because instead of putting it in the black garbage can, I put it in the blue one. 5 minutes later, I heard firm footsteps on the sidewalk. When I looked out of the window, there was the woman, her arms crossed, her face unfriendly, staring at my trash as if it were a time bomb about to explode and destroy world peace. I thought, oh, she must just be weirded out. But no, she was analyzing the crime scene. Suddenly, the lid of the blue garbage can was lifted, the garbage bag was nudged, and then, as if she were facing the biggest scandal in the neighborhood, she took pictures, yes, photos, of my garbage. I stood still, trying to understand what was going on. Perhaps it was a temporary outbreak, some kind of waste fetish? But no, the worst was yet to come. The next day, when I checked my mail, there was a fine from the HOA. The reason? Improper waste disposal. And the amount? $75. $75 for one bag of garbage. I thought it was a joke, a prank, perhaps a social test to see how far people will accept abuse without question. But no, the woman was 100% serious about it. And, of course, since I'm a rational person, I did what anyone would do in this situation. I threw the fine in the bin, in the right garbage can this time, just in case. But the problem was that she wasn't going to let it go, because, in her mind, it wasn't just a mistake, it was a personal affront, and people like her don't forgive affronts. If I thought the fine was going to be the high point of the insanity, I was very wrong. She hadn't finished with me yet. The next day, while I was trying to get on with my life as normal, I heard a dry knock on the door, the kind that tells you that the person on the other side didn't come in peace. When I opened it, there stood the woman, holding a copy of the fine as if it were an arrest warrant, and with the expression of someone who was about to give a speech at the Hague Tribunal on war crimes. She took a deep breath, straightened up like a CEO about to sack someone, and fired.
Did you get your notice?
Oh, yes, I did. I've even made good use of it. I just didn't tell you that I threw it in the trash where it belonged. But, as I'm a polite person, or at least I try to be, I just let out a dry laugh. She expected me to complete the sentence with something like, "I've already paid," or "I'm sorry for committing this atrocity against humanity." But all she found was my bored look. Her expression contorted in indignation.
So why hasn't the payment been made yet?
And that's when it hit me. She was following me, monitoring my payment as if it were an overdue bank bill. I took a deep breath and let out the most sincere of questions. "You're charging me for a bag of garbage? Really?" Her eyes went wide, as if I had committed sacrilege just by doubting the seriousness of that absurdity. I wasn't going to spend $75 to support the ego of a woman who clearly had no real problems in life. So I did what anyone would do. "I'm not paying." Her face turned red. Her eyes flashed with anger. It felt like I had slapped the HOA bylaws on the head and spit on the sacred rules of the neighborhood. She took a deep breath, gave me a "you don't know who you're dealing with" look, and stomped away. But I did. I knew exactly who I was dealing with, and that's why I knew she wasn't going to let it go. If I was already sure that this woman wasn't a good match, she made a point of giving me concrete proof. 2 days after her visit, I was quietly watching TV when I heard a siren. At first, I thought it was the television, but when I looked out of the window, there was a police car parked in front of my house. The first thing I thought was, okay, something serious must have happened in the neighborhood. But when I saw her standing there on the sidewalk, with her arms crossed, and the look of someone who has just witnessed a heinous crime, I knew it was about the garbage. She called the police about a bag of garbage. I didn't know whether to laugh or start digging a hole to hide from the shame, but, as I'm curious, I opened the door to see how far this clowning would go. A policeman got out of his car with a look of boredom and regret at having chosen this profession. He was holding a notebook and talking to the woman, who was gesturing as if she were narrating an action movie. I approached and heard the absurd phrase that came out of her mouth.
He refuses to follow the neighborhood guidelines and is now in direct defiance of the HOA's authority.
The officer turned to me and, from the look on his face, I knew that he too wanted to be anywhere else in the world but there. Sir, we received a report of a violation of neighborhood rules. I had to stop myself from laughing. But the best thing was the next detail. He didn't seem to know exactly why he was there. All he knew was that he had been called to a serious, non-compliance situation. So I asked, "What's the charge?" The woman gave me a deadly look, as if I had dared to question the sacred laws of the neighborhood association. But the policeman just sighed and looked down at his notebook. From the look on the policeman's face, he was already deeply regretting having shown up there. But his sense of professionalism kept him going. "Are you aware of the HOA rules?" I couldn't believe I was having this conversation with the police over a garbage bag. I let out a long sigh and kept myself from exploding with sarcasm. "Look, if I'd known it was a federal crime to throw garbage in the blue garbage can, I would have hired a lawyer before I moved here." The policeman closed his eyes for a second, probably trying not to laugh. Then he turned to the woman. "Ma'am, this is a civil matter. The police cannot intervene in HOA administrative matters." Ah, the sweet taste of victory. She turned pale and opened her mouth to retort, but realized that even the police didn't want to hear any more. So, after muttering something about lack of respect for the rules, she turned her back and went into the house. What about me? I closed my door, went to the fridge, and got a beer. Because, honestly, I deserved a prize after that. But one thing was certain. She still hadn't accepted defeat. After the embarrassment with the police, I swore this woman would settle down. Any normal person would have accepted defeat and moved on. But she wasn't normal. Over the next few days, I noticed that something was different in the neighborhood. First, an official email from the HOA was sent to all residents with the title, "The Importance of Following the Rules." And guess what example was used? Recent cases of non-compliance with garbage guidelines have caused unnecessary inconvenience. The HOA will not tolerate behavior that violates community order. Oh, right. Now, throwing the garbage in the wrong color was tantamount to a coup d'etat. I ignored it because, frankly, this fight had already given me enough headaches. But the woman wasn't going to give up that easily. The following week, when I went to leave the house, I noticed something strange in my garbage can. It was empty. That's right. Someone took all my garbage bags and simply made them disappear. The whole neighborhood was full, except mine. I took a deep breath, already feeling the anger rising. I took a quick walk around the block, and it wasn't long before I found my garbage dumped in the public trash can in the neighborhood park. Now I had two options: ignore it and let this crazy woman live in her own delirium of power, or do something better. That's when I had the big idea. I went home, took out my cell phone, and recorded a video of my empty trash can. Then I went to the park and filmed my trash inside. The finishing touch? A very dramatic narration. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the most heinous crime in the history of this neighborhood. The mysterious disappearance of my trash. I posted the video on the HOA group, and that was that. The chaos began. Some neighbors laughed. Others finally realized that the woman was going too far. Some even commented, "This is way out of line. Who touches other people's garbage?" The queen of absolute order didn't like the fuss at all. And of course, she wasn't going to leave it at that, because she always needed to have the last word. If I thought her outburst had reached its limit, I was wrong. Because the next day, I received an official notification from the HOA. And the reason? Defamatory posts against the association. That's right. Now, complaining that someone went through my garbage was a crime against the state of the neighborhood. But the problem for her was that, after my video, the HOA was divided. Some neighbors thought it was an exaggeration, but others began to question the absolute power this woman thought she had. And that's when things turned against her. Someone, I don't know who, but a real angel, decided to investigate the HOA president's background. And guess what? She'd done it before. She fined a neighbor for leaving a car parked too long when it belonged to his son, who was serving in the army. She tried to force an elderly woman to change her mailbox because it didn't fit in with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. He charged a neighborhood improvement fee without telling anyone where the money went. And after years of abuse, patience ran out. An emergency HOA meeting was called to discuss the president's conduct. And on the appointed day, the entire neighborhood showed up. She tried to defend herself, threw in the old excuse that she was just doing her job, and that the rules are there for a reason, but no one wanted to hear any more. At the end of the meeting, a vote was taken to remove her from the chair. The result? A unanimous vote. She was officially expelled from the HOA. And what about me? Oh, I made sure to enjoy the moment. The next day, I threw my garbage in the blue garbage can again, just to get a taste of victory. And for the first time in a long time, I woke up knowing that the neighborhood was finally free of the dumpster dictatorship. Have you ever had to deal with one of these in your life? The kind of person who thinks they run the world? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it for more unbelievable stories like this one.